Hey everybody, welcome to another Making a Geek. I am Damien DiCarlo, and I am, as usual, having a really awesome show today. We geek about everything on this show. We go from comic books, movies, sports, and now baseball. I've never had a chance to truly geek out about baseball until today, and I've been looking forward to this. And it's one of those sports that is a huge tie for me personally. And as a native of Los Angeles, it's definitely tied with the LA Dodgers. Our guest today is a Major League Baseball player and broadcaster. He made his MLB debut playing for the San Diego Padres, and he conducts post-game interviews and often doubles as a translator for Spanish-speaking players. Currently, he is an LA Dodger broadcaster. Jose Mota, welcome.
Damien, so great that we finally did this.
I
Happy New Year to
know.
you and to your audience. And good to be back with you, obviously, in communication. And we finally made it happen.
Finally made it happen. You know what else we made happen? We made the World Series happen for 2024, and I am so proud.
Yeah, the World Series is something very special. Obviously, in my background, I started my broadcast career with the team in 2002. And lucky for me, the fact that that's when the Angels made their only World Series that happens to be also one which was a winner. So it was quite a thrill to me to be back with a team and see the World Series, be in a World Series, and then obviously get a ring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite the year, and there's so much to talk about. I mean, you and I were talking a little bit about how long you've been in the industry. You played with the Padres and the Royals, and as I understand it, you first, if I have the narrative right with the story of your career, you had your first major broadcast filling in for Jaime Jarin, and who is a very legendary Spanish broadcaster, and you came in and basically killed it so much that it became something you continued from there on. Is that right?
Yeah, I will forever be gracious and thankful to Jaime because I had just gotten started with Fox back in 1997, and I'm doing TV nationally, the game of the week. And obviously, Jaime, I grew up pretty much next to him or on his lap, in the Dodger booth along with Vinny and Jerry Doggett and Ross Porter and those guys. So Jaime heard of that fact that I had started broadcasting, that he tuned in on Saturdays and hear my game of the week and this and that. And then he decided to take a vacation during spring training. Um, and he said, I have somebody that I think will do a very good job filling with Pepe Iniguez, who is still my broadcast partner. And that's how it came about. And I was like, all of a sudden, I just retired from baseball in 1997. 2 years later, I'm sitting in the Vero Beach, Florida, where I was as a kid with my dad, and I'm filling in for Jaime Jarrin. I'm like, this cannot be real. And certainly, that gave me a better taste of things. Pepe's a
Yeah.
great, obviously, master and a communicator and an experienced guy. And from then on, man, it was like, this is exactly what I like to do. And thank God it's worked out so well.
And none of that would be possible if it wasn't for the background. I would say that, most people, kids especially growing up, wish they could be players, wish they could be a broadcaster. Um, and this is something you fell into, you were so immersed in this. Talk a little bit about the background of how baseball came about. I know you're from the Dominican Republic, and that's got to be a big thing there.
I mean, baseball is an industry in the DR. I mean, it's like part of the economic plan and flow of the Dominican, and it's gotten bigger and bigger each year. Obviously, with the influence of teams, academies, resources, and money. I mean, there's a lot of money and flowing through to Dominican young players, and along with that, obviously, winter ball, which is still huge right now. But obviously, it's what we grew up with. Growing up with my dad and my mother, and um, the fact that we grew up visiting clubhouses a very young age. I tell people I was in Roberto Clemente's as a Manny Sanguillen's arms when I was 3 months old in Pittsburgh. I mean, how
That's
fortunate is that,
crazy.
right?
I mean,
So
that's
we've been
so
very
crazy.
blessed. So baseball's always been there, and for the Dominican, forget about it, man. It's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? If it's a boy, it's like he's going to be a baseball player, and beyond that, that's just how it goes.
And you're living the dream, and that comes with a certain weighty responsibility too, especially when you've taken in a few things on your plate, playing for the major leagues, and then you got broadcasting, and then you are also living up to a lot of the culture involved with baseball, and then you have your dad. Let's talk about Manny, your dad here, and he's a legend, and we know all that he's done. But how does he fit in this world for you, like personally speaking, with your professional life?
My dad's always been there from day one on what we wanted to do as kids. How he and my mom always projected us more than anything, not as baseball players, but as good citizens and servants and good students. My dad never pushed me to play baseball. My mom either. It was all about us receiving the opportunity and education that they did not receive. And to us, that was like a message of going, "What? You talk about education when we're living off of baseball?" And you did not really understand that until you mature and experience what they went through as youngsters. When my dad completed maybe a fourth grade, fifth grade education, my mom maybe seventh or eighth, and they're pushing education on us, all of us.
Yeah.
And for my dad, obviously, knowing that he came from nothing, he had to work for everything. To watch his career develop as a big leaguer and the things that he had to go through to get there. I mean, there's so many things that Latin players face today that have no idea what it was like back in the 50s and 60s when
Right.
they had to face the issue, with race. So I do admire that generation more than any other generation because of what they had to go through to get to where they're at, and sticking with it, and
Yeah.
taking the slaps and knowing that they're doing it for better things. So, and also a generation that knew that this is their future for a better living for them and for their families back home, and they understood that and took the brunt of it, but they became better, became good examples, as my dad with foundations, helping other people, helping other players, and not just being another player in the team, but also being somebody that accommodates up and coming young players, especially Latin players, so they assimilate a little bit better to what they're going to be facing in the big leagues. So for that, and for the support my dad has given me throughout my broadcast career, I'm forever thankful.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to a certain degree. My grandfather, he came from Cuba, so my mother is Cuban, and
All right.
they came in during the revolution in 1962. So things were messy, to say the least.
Yeah.
They came to this country with almost nothing, and I would say that there was one thing my grandfather always would pride himself that he brought with him, which was his love for baseball. So I recall my grandfather's love for the game as long as I could walk. He played a lot in Cuba. He was very important to the culture. And, as Cubans already love baseball so much, this sport was just so important to him. And not just for the love of the game, but I also saw a little bit of a life that was lost due to the state of the world at that time for him. So it meant a lot to him, and seeing that through his eye, the way he would look at the passion of baseball, it obviously, it did a lot to me too. So I definitely can understand a little bit as far as the culture is
Yeah.
concerned.
And think about that with the Cubans. I mean, major league teams used to go down there for spring training.
Yeah.
It was like a paradise. It was Las Vegas to them. It was
Las
everything to
Vegas,
them. I
right?
mean, and so I think they lost a lot, obviously, by what happened with them and the political side of things. But for the Cubans, I also admire them because I had a chance to work closely with a lot of them,
Yeah.
starting back in 2006 in the World Baseball Classic. And let me tell you, man, unless you're there with them in that dugout in the clubhouse on the bus and hear their stories, you have no understanding of what they still go through just to make their way to the United
Just
States
to be
and to
there.
put on
Yeah.
a professional uniform. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you were near the greats. I mean, you had Fernando Valenzuela with you, and I mean, let's talk a little about that. He was right there with you. What kind of impact did he have in your life?
Fernando, there's no way I can think of Fernando and not laugh and smile. Rest in peace. Fernando's a guy that I met when I was 14 years old, and he was in Vero Beach with the Dodgers and in Double A, making a transition to the big leagues. Something that my dad took under his wing again to make him understand more about the future, and somebody that Mike Brito, the scout that partly discovered him, along with the other scout, Corito Barona, also brought into the light, saying this guy's going to be very special. So it was almost like this is a jewel in the organization, and so many of us got to see him from the way he went about his business, how mature he was, how relaxed he was, how smart he was about the game, and how much he loved the game too. And among that, I saw him as a big leaguer now, as a star in the clubhouse, as a great teammate, as a jokester, as a guy that did whatever he could do to stay on the field and pitch innings and swallow up innings, to which at the end ended up hurting him.
Yeah.
But he could beat you. He could beat you with his arm. and he could reach it with his bat. And along with that, Fernando was a very good communicator and helped his teammates understand the game a little bit more deep.
I mean, there's so many legends that you've been around, and this is something that obviously,
Yeah.
it elevates the quality of life. And that's not just because, the fact that they're celebrities or they're well known. We get that there's talent, but these people, come from very humble backgrounds, and this is something that you learn as a life lesson, maybe similar to maybe your parents, how they taught you to be. And this is something that was first and foremost, as you said, to be a very good, decent human being. So this was something that these people were around you with the same qualities and the same passion. I mean, I couldn't think of a better way to grow up, honestly, to be in the career that you're in.
Right. I mean, as I said, I've been quite fortunate and very blessed, but at the same time, very appreciative of every single person I've encountered in my career, in my life, to ask questions. I mean, one of the people that I really appreciate the most is a guy named Preston Gomez, Cuban, who was such a great advisor and advocate for me because I knew Preston Gomez, who was obviously the first manager of the San Diego Padres with the expansion. And he managed in the big leagues. He coached in the big leagues many years. He got to know me when I was 13, 14 years old as a Dodger coach. Then when I became a broadcaster, he was the one guy that's like, every Saturday after the game of the week, give me a call. Hey, I heard your game today, this and that. And then as I progressed and opportunities came up, Preston was one that said, hey, if the Angels have an opportunity, because he was back then with the Angels as an advisor, I would love for you to be an Angel. I know that your heart's with the Dodgers, but I'm saying, Preston, wherever God leads me, it doesn't matter. I'll go to the moon to get started and be part of the broadcast team with the team. And eventually it worked out where he saw me join the Angels as a broadcaster. And from then on, he also told me, just make sure that you do not corner yourself into the Spanish market only. He goes, you grew up in baseball, you're bilingual, you know the game well,
Right.
you can relate to so many people and be bicultural and he said, please expand and don't stay doing Spanish only into that. Again, how can I thank him more?
Yeah, I mean that's a biggest life lesson right there. And I think that goes with
It is.
almost anything you do. Don't limit yourself. Get out there and do everything. I mean, we follow each other on social media. You can see I do a lot. So for me, I definitely take that very literal. I will not limit myself. I will jump in any opportunity I have to get there. And I don't know what I'll be good at, but I'll know once I'm start. When I dive in, I'll know how well I can paddle. So, and if I
Yeah,
need to
you know,
dive in again, I'll dive in again.
yeah, and that's how actually I came into a lot of opportunities. I mean, I was asked sometimes, Jose, there's this one thing starting on MLB radio. Have you ever? I'm like, no, I haven't done it, but give me a mic and I'll do it.
There you go.
So don't limit yourself. And at the same time, I ran into a lot of people that when I brought up the idea of being a bilingual broadcaster, they're like, what? No, that's not going to happen. I go, put it on me, make it happen. So
Yeah.
thus, I was able to break some barriers and become that first person that was able to jump to both and do both at not at the same time, same game, which has happened before too, but to say, hey, this got broadcast in Spanish radio or Spanish TV, Spanish or English radio, English TV, pre and post game, analyst or play by play. So I never put myself limited to anything like I want to become the next this. I said, if anything, as my mom said, become the first Jose Mota. That's all you got to worry about
Yeah.
because, yes, you've had great teachers. You want to emulate how they got there and their careers and their work habits, but become the first you. And from then on, you'll see that many others will follow also in your footsteps.
Right. Don't lose who you are. That's the number one best piece of advice. What could you recall out of all the things that your dad has mentioned ever in your life that you walk away as the most valuable piece of advice? What would you say might that be?
Never be satisfied. Never be satisfied. There's always more. There's always more to learn. There's always more to share and to be humble. And I mean, there's so many different things that I just don't want to miss anything. And to work, nothing's going to be given to you. Nothing's going to be
Yeah,
given
you
to you.
got to
You got to
work
go
for
out there and
everything.
earn it,
Yeah.
work, and also understand who you are, your strength, your weaknesses, and let your faith carry you. I mean, that's the main thing. I would not be where I'm at today without my faith, my relationship with Jesus Christ, my love for Him, and passing it along. And I think and I tell you that some of the most precious relationships I've had in the game with players have all been based on Bible studies and visiting the rooms and them having gone through a hard time saying, hey, I need to talk to you after a game, before a game, let's go to lunch and things like that, because that really is the base for all of us to find happiness and joy. And I'll tell you right now that, doing the chapel in Spanish for so many years with the Angels, I still get so many players and groups that still talk about that because I was so unique, and I always thank God for that.
Yeah, it is so ingrained. I don't know. I don't care who you are. If you're of a Latin descent, you're going to be very religious. There's going to be some sort of tie that will put you there. And I think that really fuels a lot of people, a lot of players for that extra push, that extra, thing to like, I don't want to say obligation, but it's just more of that extra, faith. You're putting faith in what you're doing in your works, and not just at home, but in the game. Like, all of it applies. You have to jump in and do all that.
And one thing I make sure I talk to the Latin players about, because I grew up Catholic. Okay, that's a religion, but my faith is based more on Christianity and my walk with Jesus, right? But I had to learn that as I mature and I progress, and I was around people that explained to me more about the Word of God,
Right.
and not just a religion. So I had to explain to a lot of the players, it's not about you going to church on Sunday so much, about what you do every day to have that relationship, right?
Right.
And also, one of the things that I always told them was, and we discussed a lot during chapel, was if they take that uniform away from you, when they do, because it's going to happen, who are you?
Right.
So find out who you are.
Some people have difficulty figuring out what is for them after it's over. And I don't mean just players. I just mean everybody.
And start with that now when you have the uniform on, because we want people to remember you in Venezuela or Dominican, Cuba, Colombia as, oh, that's the guy that helped me that one time, and not going to say, oh, that's the ball player, but you know what? He's done now, so we don't need him, so forget him, right?
Right. As the old saying goes, your 30 seconds of fame are up and you're washed up. But, if you're a good person, Fernando, to me, I still have a hard time. My brain is having a hard time understanding he's gone. I really am. And it's funny because I've never met the man, but I grew up around him so much that it's just, I always figure he'll be there. And to a certain degree, he is in all of us. But this is something that is really important. I think people know that you build character in MLB because it's something that is you. It's not like you're just an actor. You're not doing that. This is you behind that, on the plate, or, whatever field you're playing on, or position. With your career in the Dodgers, do you feel that this is something that you want to stay with? Like, this is where you will just be for the rest of your career and whatever you choose to do?
I always say, let God have the last word. Obviously, I'm in a very prime position, which I'm very thankful for, but I'm one that I'm not saying that I'm looking for, but I'm always trying to push myself to see what else could I do? What else is there for me to do within the organization, right?
Right.
But obviously, if I'm here for the rest of my life, I am quite happy and joyful. I just want to make sure that whatever I bring, whatever the year brings, whatever the opportunity brings, I'm doing it for the best of those listening and watching, to serve the organization, and the players too, because, I mean, there's relationships with the players that I treasure, from the days that I played to the days that I was broadcasting independently with Fox, to the days that I was at the Angels, that I carry forever. And my job, and a guy like Tim Meade with the Angels, who was our vice president of communications, and more than that, is a guy that was really had that approach about life and about people. Like, you're a broadcaster, but please don't limit yourself to just that department.
Right.
There's ways in which we need you to help us, and go do that. And to me, that plays right into what I like to do in life. I mean, I shouldn't tell Artie Moreno or Disney company that hired me that I can't do this because I'm only a broadcaster.
Right.
We're talking about people. I can't tell a player that I can't talk to them behind, if there's not a microphone involved, because they're people too. And that's one thing where I develop a relationship with the wives, the moms, the aunts, the kids, where they saw me on TV or heard me on radio, and there was more like, oh, who you you are, but yeah, okay, you carry a microphone, but we really know who you are. And that to me really carries a lot of weight. More than anything, I got very used to serving on multi platforms, and I enjoy that, going between English and Spanish. I owe it to the Spanish audience because that is who I am. That is how I grew up. Those are my roots, right? I mean, I grew up in the Dominican, and I went all through high school in the Dominican. So, I mean, I'm quite rooted in Latin American life and high school and kids and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I spent the summers here, and I went to college here, and obviously I had to learn a lot of things about culture in the U.S. But to me, is I am with the best organization in the world. I mean, there's an iconic organization. It's a global brand. It is a brand that has withstood the times because they care about community. They know how to reach out. They know how to expand. They know how to grow, and they trust you when they hire you. So to me, I don't want to point myself in one direction, but I know that as a broadcaster, there's many things that I want to do and want to continue to do that are going to come with time. And certainly I know that the relationship within the organization with the players and also with the audience, because nowadays, if you think about it, you're not pinned to only an audience that listens to you locally. Now you're global. Now you're
Right.
listening. I mean, I have so many fans, for example, in Japan because of my relationship with Shohei Ohtani, but this started way back when Ichiro came and I started learning a little Japanese. And all those things to me are like a challenge. And I welcome that. And also the fact that you just never know how you're going to touch somebody or reach somebody or at least get to their ear. And you talk about, you know, building a relationship with people through the audience and through my work. One of the things I always ask my wife was like, when I would go out and do Angels Live, I run out to the front of the stadium to the big house, right? But there's so many kids and children that approach me, right? And their parents are like, "There's Jose." I'm like, I finally came to my wife. I'm like, why do so many kids? We're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 years old to teenagers. Want to take a picture? I want to talk to me. She's like, I think you're like very approachable on camera. In fact, people relate to that. But I really was honestly asking that, going, why is it? Right?
Right.
To the point, I mean, I have a video of the young girl crying, saying, "Oh my God, I'm meeting Jose Mota." But I'm like, I have a daughter just like you. I'm just another dad, right? But it
Right.
really fills my heart that I can relate to them, relate to the coach that's teaching the game. I think and believe truly that we as broadcasters can do a better job teaching the game. There's so many theories and swing path and numbers and this and that, but the love for the game needs to be number one that we instill in kids. Why they want to play the game, right? So teach them that they're not going to be the next Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani, but they can be a David Eckstein, right? They can be somebody that perhaps a Tommy Edman, right? A Kike Hernandez. Maybe not they grasp all the headlines, but they're useful. So I think instilling that in kids, teaching them the rights and the basics of the game is what really is going to separate us a little bit more from other sports. And knowing that baseball is so repetitive, is every day you're going to fail a whole lot. And also at the same time is it relates to boys and girls because girls softball mentality wise, mechanics wise, a little bit different, but the approach to winning has to be the same because you got to be a good teammate, but also learn how to do things right because with the little things, you can make bigger things happen for your team because the simplest thing is this. One run, it's all you need. One the other team. And sometimes that one run is going to come with the minimal things that you find out that perhaps for other people are insignificant. For you, make it significant.
Yeah. No, I mean it's very well said, and I think that you are a very shining example as a teacher, and I think that that should be continued for sure. This is something that the old saying of great power, great responsibility, and that's the thing about this. It seems like you have a lot on your plate, not just in terms of actual work, but people that you sort of answer to without having to actually speak to them. It's just more rather just your presence, what you do, and they all look to
I'm very
you.
blessed. One thing too is I never stop learning, man. I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I ask a lot of questions on, say, Hall of Famers when I run into them in the booths or in the hallways and from any sport about how they got there, what led them there, or the legacy is going to be. And I'm one that's never satisfied in that aspect of learning and teaching myself and correcting myself and disciplining myself to be the best version. As Joe Madden made very popular with the Angels in 2020, become the best version of yourself by
Yeah.
doing the things that you know that your version could come up with to polish yourself up. So, and one thing too is I think in life and as a husband and as a son and as a grandpa that I am and as a brother, but also in my career, I really want to go to my grave. I really do, without being a finished product. I want to always be on the edge of finding something else, finding the next level, the next, as we say, gear, because I know that by learning and challenging myself every single day about something is what really keeps me going, keeps me motivated.
Yeah. No, that says fine words, very deep, and I truly appreciate that as well. If we're to close it out before we go, I have to ask you, as far as now, with all of this that you've had on your plate, we've had a background of you growing up. We've had a little bit about what you're doing and where you're going to go as far as, forward. 2025 has a lot in store for everybody, but what do you think like in regards to the Dodgers specifically? Do you think that we have to look forward this coming year?
Oh my God, the Dodgers are building something so special, man. And Andrew Friedman put it so cleanly, so detailed when they signed
Yeah.
Blake Snell, saying, "We're trying to make this the golden years, the golden era of Dodger baseball," and they're not lying. I mean, they have. First of all, you got to line things up with leadership from the top. Okay, people with a vision, and obviously when you have resources, money, it helps a lot. But how do you use those resources, that money, your personnel, to line things up? Because you have the best fan base in baseball, the most loyal fan base in baseball. Okay. Now you have the influence of a global icon and icons throughout the world, like Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, now, Kim, who's come from Korea. But you're building something so special for so many people in diverse communities. For the Dodgers, what I enjoy the most is like there's always that next step. It reminds me a lot of George Steinbrenner. And I had a chance to talk to the boss back in the late 90s. And to me, to hear him talk about, yeah, we just won, but there's something we're doing. It's like, wow. It's like that other thing. So the Dodgers are building off of that.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have the money and the resources and the personnel and to not employ it right. But they're doing everything to employ it right because obviously there's windows in baseball you got to take advantage of because the timing is right, plans are aligned, and their time is now. Now, the biggest challenge in 2025 is going to be leaving 2024 behind. Leaving
Right.
it behind and knowing that it's not going to repeat itself is like that, but know that you're building even something more special, more truthful, and more sustainable by the decisions you're making on the financial side, on the personnel side, and even on the state of experience side for the fans to know that it can last a very long time with success.
Amazing. Yeah, I think this is there's so much to look forward to. As far as, fans and now players, management. I mean, that's once we have a win like this, it's like why did we try to, think we wouldn't do it? Like we always have to think we can do this. And I think
Yeah,
now
and
25 is I think it's gonna happen.
that group, man, I mean, they're so hungry, they're so focused, they're so determined, they're so driven, they're so unique in the way they went about, the latter part of the season and traveling together alone and spending time together. I mean, there's a very special group that around my time in baseball, I had never ever seen before. How these guys drive each other, believe in each other, don't find excuses, and they have a great leader in Dave Roberts. Let's not forget about that man because at number 30, he's going to end up in a very special place in history.
I will remember that. These are predictions, people. 2025. We'll see how we end up, and I'm sure we're gonna do great. We have such a great fan base. We have such a great team, organization. So happy to have talked to you. Before we go, Jose, please tell me where people can find you. Tell us all your Instagrams and your Twitters or X's or whatever you kids call it these days.
Well, easy. At Jose Mota 05, JOSEMOTA 05, both on X and Instagram. I'm not as active as I want to be sometimes, but I think it's part of my personality. But I certainly like to a lot of special things with people, and they know that I can always reach them. But the best thing about social media, and I believe me, my personality is this: if I had not this position, if I was not this position, I probably wouldn't have social media. But I enjoy talking to the fans through social media. So fans, questions, pictures, anything you want to share, and even instruction, getting through social media. So please reach out anytime. Again, at Jose Mota 05, and I welcome your comments. I welcome your input. I welcome your questions and anything that you might need from me.
Beautiful. And it was such a pleasure to have met you, Jose. Hopefully I'll meet you in person and not just over the internet.
All right.
But yeah,
Or some cafe cubano one day.
There we go. Hey, now you're talking. Now you're talking my style. Definitely, we'll have to meet up. And I'm very thankful you came out on the show, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. Always going to be a pleasure to talk to you.
All the best to you and your family. Thanks so much.
You can reach me on Instagram, Damien_DeCarlo, makingitgeek.com for all my shenanigans and all I do. Now, my sign off, as you know, everybody, I always say keep calm, but also I say geek on. Good night, everybody.